So some guy wrote in and said, or asked, what is it that we're up against, really? And I said, I thought that was a pretty good question because it's not what you would think. So we have these two fake parties, like a mono party, because this left and right thing is just a bunch of hooey. And in fact, the whole ideology behind the left, or was considered the left, is straight out of 1919. So they are ipso facto discredited. Any bit of it is discredited. The only thing legitimacy they had was labor movement, but see, that was infiltrated by their people who were looking to use it as a class conflict. So essentially they became the arbiters of the disgruntled workers. Well, who needs people like that? Do you think you do? Because if you do, you really don't. And you know what? They really didn't. In fact, they screwed up the labor movement. But then again, you see also the crime aspect, organized crime, plus these lefty terrorists, foreign terrorists, fifth columnists that are working with foreign terrorists and crime. That's the left. So we're talking about crime. So if you're a criminal or something, you might want to rethink your life a little bit and also get out of anything you're in dealing with organized crime, because they're part of the problem. So all you druggies or whatnot, okay, if you're growing something yourself and you're not involved with that, but again, how far away are you from that? You're sort of the same type of money person, aren't you? You have maybe an axe to grind too, because they did this and they did that. See, that fits right into their little matrix of stooges and ne'er-do-wells. So you need to cure yourself. And there are spiritual practice. You know what? True religion will help you with that. So then we have academics that are essentially engaging in memory wars or other propagandistic ideological work, misrepresentations, fabrications, accusations. They're part of it. You've got a large legal component that are engaged in lawfare, which brings us to police that are on the wrong side of this equation. So just people that, thanks to the political appointees that are working with foreign terrorist organizations funded by them, get appointed to positions of authority. So it really just depends. If your region is riddled with crime, then you can start to see them more as facilitators of crime and not really as police, as you would think in a one-tier system. But see, they have a two-tier. So it's really funny. Like they want to prove how competent they are by giving you a speeding ticket. Meanwhile, in the same place, there's people driving around high on who knows what with no insurance, no license plates, and killing thousands of people every year. So are those good people or bad people, do you think, that are playing those games? Because they want to give the people, the peasants, the tax base, the impression that they're really sticklers for law and order. But, the facts don't really back them up on a macro level. So I understand they're in a difficult position because then both sides would hate them. But I would think the criminals hate them less because they don't want to mess up that gig for themselves. And criminals are crazy enough to maybe pull something out and blast them in the face. Whereas the people making sure their grass is cut, they'll pay that parking ticket and everybody's happy. So institutions of any kind producing any type of ideological contamination, And then we go up. So obviously, the banking system is involved in the drug laundering business. All the agencies that are supposed to monitor that activity have failed. The banks have failed on an ethical level, which includes Wall Street, venture capital, private equity. And then above that, we finally get to the goopists. Goopists are a little global club, like the Club of Rome type goopist. Pumps with black goo and egos to the moon. So they could be anywhere, right? These global corporations, yeah. Any of them come out with any type of ideological signaling, you know, essentially their management and ownership structures are cooked. So that's what we're looking at. It's in the West and the East. And the people that are, essentially it's a two-tier system, so that's first tier. And there's different, again, I think the goopists are probably the top of the pyramid. Then the banks, then the administrators, then the ideological stooges, something like that. And if you're not in that, then you're out of that. You're just fair game for anything. In fact, they have a bunch of programs running to keep you down. Discriminatory hiring practices, predatory court system that is perpetually engaged in overreach, has been for the last 110 years. Jail, bailiffs. That's a little side business, side industry that they like. So that's sort of the modern despotism that you're looking at. So if you're going to be successful politically, you need to address all of those areas, and certainly war crimes are rife in all of those areas, but they're undeclared. They haven't been established yet. And until they're established, well, is it a crime? Well, no, it's just illicit activity. It works for some people that have no morals, are schemerist, and all about they themselves and their buddies, their families, their friends. Because they're in on the joke. They're in the gated communities. Everybody else outside that, zombie land rules apply. So wherever you start seeing like a lot of security and then the people inside, well, chances are that's part of something that is has planned for a general descent into anarchy for people not in the know, per the Venezuelan model. Venezuela in the 50s and 60s, when they discovered oil, was one of the best places to live on earth. People there had great lifestyles, great weather, a lot of civility, but you see, greedy people decided to turn the lights off on them. Because greed leads to despotism. It leads to tyranny. It leads to all of the things I just mentioned. So this is not outer space stuff. It's pretty basic how it can happen and how they do it, but it's not basic that people should like it or accept it or do nothing about it. But that's where they direct a lot of their energies to make sure that people stay asleep. Stay sort of happy enough not to protest, but see, they just keep pushing it to the point where that's sort of inevitable. But then if that does become inevitable, they want to be on the side that gets to beat up or imprison or dispose of anyone that wants to change that status quo. So, and it is an argument that they would go to the security service and say, hey, look, if you're in on this scam, you're a part of it, you're covered. And so that's how they flip them. And the people that don't play ball, well, If the conspiracy is big enough, what do you think happened to them? So we're sort of looking at like a whole scale on that level type of problem. That is the problem. If you go back, like, how could these idiots have done something like that? Well, look at, of course, not Theodore Roosevelt, the last U.S. president, authentic one. Look to FDR, essentially a classist snob that had a disdain for anyone outside of his class, per the Anglo-Saxon model that degraded and degenerated into that over time, because certainly William the Conqueror did not have that retrograde, imbecilic point of view. But his progeny turned into landlords. The landlords, as I spell them, Lard. And what happened? Well, look at Scotland. Everything, trophies. You got a few farm hands and the big castle, and that's it. Someone who thinks them very highly of themselves, and a lot of step and fetches. And look at the population level. How many people are living there now? There used to be a lot more. Now they're trying to get rid of sheep and planting trees instead. I'm actually glad to hear that, because they cut down the trees originally and put sheep there and their little hunting lodges that look ridiculous and tacky as hell, because that made them more money at the time, they thought, because that's the type of personalities you find are in the so-called superior class that they consider themselves to be, just on the basis of sheer randomness, born into positions that they abuse. That wasn't William the Conqueror's idea, although a certain amount of distribution needed to be distributed to his people. But to think that the original people he set up in those places would devolve into that way of thinking, I don't think so. If he came back, he would just have them beheaded, thrown into the pig pit. But they feel that they are the representatives of a hallowed tradition that they are the living representatives of, when in fact they're sort of the opposite of what the franchise should be. But you know, those egos that, like I said, like I call them, the methane blimps, they ain't landing that thing anytime soon. They have enough gas to keep them going. And they have yes people that also help reinforce how great they are surrounding them. Just like the Russian model has it. He's never wrong. If he's wrong, make him right. Make him right as fast as you can, even if that means changing the history books. But we're modern, we're progressive, we're not doing that. That's what they did in stupid times, like the medieval times. Were they that stupid? No, actually, no. People were more religious back in medieval times, which right off the bat should let you know that they were more civilized than the secularists today that are talking about the sexual marketplace. Biotriggers. It's all about the neurons. It's about the neurons, morons. Smart morons. So what a time, what a time. I mean, I have to, my jaw sometimes falls down. I gotta clap it back up like that, do something. But it's no wonder people are just out of their minds, because this is the leadership that we have now based on these lopsided games. So what are potential recommendations for moving forward? Well, yeah, energy needs to be regulated. All those people need to go. Banking needs to be regulated. All those people need to go. And I would say any politician that has in any way ever used any Sino-Soviet tropes, including the information sphere, they got to go too. And that includes educators, NGOs, and anything else that's on that wavelength. And that could be done. We could do, like, the Bill of Rights is just like a couple of, is it one page? You could have, what I just said, you could put in 4 paragraphs on one page. And it's signed off on by Congress. But it might not be their Congress. It might just be a people's Congress. And so at that moment, they are in violation of the law. They are the criminals that they are. Not just illicit, but the legal criminals. Or the illegal criminal, people engaged in illegal activities. For the detriment of the country, of everyone else. So there you go, that's bill number 1. Now, once everything gets sorted out, there will be a tremendous amount of wealth that can be distributed and put into sensible strategic policies, industrial policies, living policies. For example, forget about paying rent. Those days are over. Or maybe it'll just be like some nominal fee, as long as you remain a upstanding citizen, you can have it. But if you do something bad, you could lose it, type thing, which is normal. But you're not going to be being predated upon by a bunch of landlords and their schemes. And there's going to be a cultural focus that is restorative, where we will bring in experts to restore all the damage that has been caused. And where it's been completely extincted and genocided and eliminated, it will be replanted, just like the forest in Scotland. And it will take time to grow, but it will be then there, unlike today. And as far as foreign engagement goes, this is not a call for isolationism. We will support our allies worldwide, people that want to live free of the negative influences that I just described. People that want to live with a little bit of decency, a little bit of civility, a little bit of dignity and respect. On the other hand, we will not be supporting regimes that are identified to be of the goopist model, or with any type of Sino-Soviet characteristics. But let's come back to FDR again. A certified POS of the classist variety that we can now understand better, at least as far as his classist ideology went. So he was warm. He was warm to communism, although he was one of the few people in the country at that time that should have known better. But you see, he did know better for his class. He just didn't know it better for the rest of the Americans that didn't want to be subjugated into a second-tier system. For humanitarian reasons, right? That's how it was sold. Sort of the charity racket. And look at us, we're virtue signaling while applying our ill-gotten gains to some miraculous cause that we own through proxies and is indeed just a tax scheme. But watch us, take our pictures, please. We're better than now, and this proves it because we're also schemerist. So yeah, those days are over. The 110 years of infamy is how we can cause it. It might just be 120 years if it takes 10 years to get there. The 120 years of infamy. That's how we can put it in Western history books for the rest of time. It's just, again, we have all those people fronting, giving little speeches in front of cameras and doing their little thing and raising the rents and sending agents of infamy into schools to attack kids. Your kids, not their kids, just so you know. That's why nothing's being done about it. Because that's the psychopathy element that they have in spades. You can't mistreat people unless you don't care about them first. It's just people usually take them at face value that they would be a subnormally detrimental kind of person because they don't present themselves that way. That's essentially the con that they're in as confidence people. They have one face for the public and a completely different face in private. It's just they think they're so damn smart that the one will never get to see the other, or if they do, it'll be explained away with their public relations that they have more than enough money for. But you don't, right? Real wages going down. Productivity also going down. They don't care. They'll import something 5 times the price. Look at what they're doing in their despotic core right now. Sanctions? Okay. How much do we got to pay now? $1,000 instead of $10. No problemo. Send it on. And send a couple extra because we don't know if this might not work next time. The goop got it for us. But for the people starving to death, well, that is really too bad for them, isn't it? Just too bad. They deserve it because they're not in the cool crowd. They're not tough enough to wipe their boots on the faces of talented people. So just strange conceit they have. Strange way of presenting themselves, and then an even stranger way of acting. So that's just what you're looking at. If you didn't know, now you know. You're in on it. You're in on the joke, the circus, the laugh. But, things can happen. Things are just getting a little crazy out there. So watch if they try to just pull out the information space like they do in more of their despotically managed places. And then it's just sunshine and rainbows. Just like in that wonderful place, China, that is presented one way, but is actually completely different. Certainly if you're not in the Goopus game. the goo group. So that's it. That's the platform. That's the position. That's the situation. That's how things can move forward. But again, I'm being optimistic with 120 years of infamy. Right? It could be 130. Certainly, people didn't think when it started it would have such a run. So, and they do like to adapt with new technologies, don't they? And they're lock, stock, and barrel owned companies that are committing cultural war crimes at this very moment. So yeah, strange, isn't it? Not so strange, kind of way of seeing things. Or to put it another way, if we're talking about class dynamics, the idea is to change out the ownership and then completely change out the management, which is their PMCs, all these corporatist type of people, managers, we don't need them. We don't need their school of management. We don't need their attitude. We don't need their classism. We don't need their sense of superiority, their egotism, their greed, their ideology, or their coercion. We don't need it. So we're putting it in a box and we're discontinuing it. So corporations are going to get completely changed, the completely different set of management practices that are worker focused. They're not managers. They're going to be something like support. That's the way, administrative support. And if they're not supporting operations in every which way but loose, if they're pissing people off and they're not doing their jobs, they're going to get fired real quick. There is nothing special about being an administrative specialist in terms of personal egos and I'm better than you, because no, it's a team effort, fool. And it needs to be done right, and if it isn't, you're gonna get canned real quick, because there's going to be feedback culture too. It's not going to be these funnels where you get to represent yourself to the management and keep everything in the dark. Now, on the other hand, if you're a screwed up worker that's got some axe to grind, doesn't want to do the damn work, wants to have a bad attitude, wants to be something they're not, you're not going to be sticking around either. There's a lot of messed up people in the world that have messed up ideas and want everything and want to do nothing for it. Okay, that is common to subnormal, normal to subnormal. There's a whole range of people that think that way. And yeah, this life's not going to be your playground for sure. The system we had before, the old system, they catered to both types. Big mouths and troublemakers on the one hand, and incompetent, egotistical boobs on the other. Now me, I can spot them a mile away. And if you're like me, you can too. So guess what's going to happen? They're going to come with their little games and their little circuses and their little power plays and their schemerist and greedy and not giving a damnism, and they're going to get in and out like that quicker than they ever thought was possible. And it's just going to be an ongoing thing, isn't it? Maintenance of high, effective, and good culture. Now, this does not mean that only problems are going to be discussed. There's going to be a lot more involvement as a team effort to do things right. Which means if there's a problem, it should be discussed. If it turns out this is AstroTurf and you're in on some type of ideological game, you're going to get something worse than you thought. So don't bring up any type of BS at all. And if you're contaminated, look, this is your problem. I did not push a button and force all of these groupists to poison people and contaminate them ideologically. I have had it up to here with people that do that and have had that done to them and think that they're just going to ride roughshod over a civil society. It's not happening. And psychologists, sociologists, all those little weasels, they're not tolerated either. Universities are going to have the same feedback culture. If it turns out that one of these damn wig flip turncoats wants to do something, and that's not going to get done. They're going to plan it, and then there's going to be like a sound, and it's not going anywhere. These terrorists, and I think that's a word that should be applied to them, have just run roughshod over the country and the world for the last 70 years. 70 to 110, going on 120. I have zero tolerance for that crap, and neither should you. Nothing about it is good. It's just a big fake, corny filler that Goopist colluded with on the capitalist side, yeah, which we're gonna redo that too. Okay, we don't need people shuffling numbers for us that are involved in the illicit drug trade, for example. Don't need them. As far as drugs go, look, there will be some type of solution people need. I'm big on recovery programs. I really am. I'm big on compassion. But to a point, okay, to a point. If you want to look how Mao Zedong solved the situation, essentially I'm not for that, but if it reaches a point of contagion where everyone's on dope, what can we do? What is to be done? That's a warlike measure, unfortunately. What do you do with people that's been sprayed with mustard gas? What do you do? How many will survive? How many are salvageable? I hate these problems to death, believe me. I hate them to death. You know what I hate to see too is people sprayed with mustard gas. I want to puke. But it is what it is. You don't think humanity can deal with problems? Well, you're wrong. They always have dealt with problems. They've done it the right way, and as we have noticed in this despicable year of 2024, they do it the wrong way too, on an organized fashion. Goopist, classist, PMC, messed up weirdos, essentially, all over the damn place. Unlimited funds. And no regrets, right? No sense of right and wrong. No loyalty to country, nation, people, anything. All in for themselves. So F them and anyone like them, or their yes people, or their leverage people. F them all. They're not the solution. They're more the same. So it's going to be, they foisted a damn cultural war on us, cultural devolution. F them all. Their little crappy games, we don't need any of it. Not an iota, not any of their memory wars either. That is forbidden starting today. You can start it today. Start it where you are, when you are, wherever you are. It's not acceptable. It's not credible. It's not good. Have you done it in the past? Stop it. You have books like that? Throw them away. Start over. We're cracking a new page on this thing. We're turning the corner. Their stuff is outdated. However they want to high-tech it, repackage it, it's the same damn stuff. We don't need them, and we don't need what they're bringing to the table, which is nothing but predation. Sadism, criminality, and insanity. We don't need any bit of that. You would think people richer than Midas, right, would have a little bit more sense than what they have, but they don't. That's essentially the tyrannical principle. Why the hell would they do it? Well, why? They're bad people. They prove it with their deeds. The actions prove that despite what they say, they're not good. So political accountability, high. Political ethics, high. That's the bar we're setting. You have no ethics, you're a schemer, you want money, do something else. Right? There's a whole economy full of charlatans and fakers and all of that. That's where you belong. And I hope you don't get one damn customer, and if you do get two, I hope you lose them. Because business used to have those hard and fast rules. You could trick someone, but guess what? You ended up going out of business eventually. Because word got around. But in politics, unacceptable. It should be considered treason, which it is. And treason should be punished in a pre-war period type fashion. I want to redefine treason. I'm not a treasonist, I'm a globalist, damn it. Sure you are, buddy. Keep telling yourself that. And we're going to have people driving around, going to places and checking up and making sure everything is on the up and up. And if it isn't, all hell is going to break loose. These damn free riders thinking they can just do nothing and just do their impunistic, stupid little sociopathic games forever. Hell no. That culture is done. It's over. Put a gravestone on it. Don't even chisel RIP on it either. So yeah, 110 years, let's not make it 120 of infamy. Let's put a period to that chapter and turn the page, because that's where we're going. We're not going to get more of the same. This has just been, unforgettably bad for the people that lived through it, whoever's still living through it. If you're young, you don't want to get to know what the older people must know if their brain hasn't been scrambled like an omelet. Scrambled like eggs and cooked like an omelet. That's about what they got done to them. So yeah, that time is over. Thank God. Let's work towards that future that I just mentioned right here, because we aren't there yet, but we can get there. Oh yes, we can. Yes, we can. We will get there, but not the way we've been going. That's for sure, and not with damn people that I just described. We don't need the owners. We don't need the managers. We don't need the yes people. Don't need them. 1, 2, 3. 3 people we don't need. 3 classes. That's right. Classes we don't need. We don't need their class. Their class is D class A. Greedy, ideological, compromised, egotist. Hell no. The D class A class ain't nothing classy about it. And they're maniac friends in bad places, though. We don't need anything they're selling. Not a damn thing. We don't need anything. Nothing. Zero. It's just as well they didn't exist. So you have business relationships, you can't find something because it's more expensive to produce it locally or regionally or in your country. Well, F your business model and you and everything you ever did. Your thinking is outdated. You're not in this year, at this time, or at this moment. You're a deluded, greedy, idiotic fool. That's another thing with these damn corporations. If they had any of that stink, There needs to be a full investigation, how it happened, who did it, when it started, and stopping it immediately. Zero tolerance for insidious psychological attacks on the populace. Zero. All their little agitory groups, their leftist, terrorist, fake right, what is it, neo-Nazis? Yeah, that's another one. Where does that keep coming from? Well, it keeps coming out of their butts with a bunch of stooges and some photo ops. They're probably the same thing. It's just a LARPing, essentially, LARPers. There's an ever-present threat. Why? Here's a couple of photos in a staged public relations event. Recently in Aussie land, they had neo-Nazis protesting against feminists. Just showed up out of nowhere. Oh, isn't that funny? Two fake groups. And then, of course, the policymakers have to decide what's hate now and make sure that they start banning an ever-increasing list of adjectives. You can get either monetary fines or canceled or sent to jail. Yeah, Where do they do that outside of tyrannies? Oh, they do it in the West now, that's right, in places where people like them have taken over with rigged elections. Could organized crime be in on that too? Is that right? Two-Ton Tony doesn't give a damn? Might have murdered 50 people. Doesn't give a damn who's who, as long as he gets something. Is that how democracy was devised to work? So, yeah, no, we don't need them either. We don't need Two-Ton Tony and his baloney crew. And yeah, I mean, if they were just moving baloney, maybe somebody could overlook that. But they got into the baloney business on a whole different level of scale, including international treason. But for people that are bigger and better than the law, like to break rules to get ahead, I guess it could lead to something like that, and it did. So, F them all, okay? And as far as regular people, start getting your minds right. Work on spiritual matters. This world is just one part of the dimensionality of the universe. Spirituality, spiritual hygiene, spiritual practice, meditative prayer. Yeah, that's where it's at. That's how you get to the pearly gates. And you can get it here in this life, and that's where you should be mostly residing most of the day. Why? Because you're practicing all the time. It's a 24/7, 365 practice. There are no days off. But it's not something you can't do. It's exactly what you can do, because your practice is such a good practice that it's always in the here now. It's always accessible. It's always sharp. It's always being polished. It's always being practiced. It's always being applied. And this is not just for men, especially the women. With all their snarkiness and bad vibes and everything else, expectations, all those need to go. You are a helpmate, a cheerful companion for other men and other women. That's it. You don't have to be more than that. But you certainly shouldn't be less than that. Damn CEO and not that. Who gives a damn about you? You're a force for decline. Congratulations. Your life is a vanity project. Wonderful. You know where you are on the scale? You're not exceptional in a good way. You're exceptional in a crappy way. You're an exceptionally crappy person that's considered to be something better than they are. So if you believe it, you're that much more deluded. So who should give a damn about you that is of note? No one. That's who. But for the unseen woman that is cheerful and a good person and doing what she does within the context of her life and supporting others and herself, a light unto the world, guess what? She don't need to be no damn CEO. She doesn't. She doesn't. She's got a lot of time, a lot of space, a lot of good things she's cultivating. That's right. Even if it's in a nunnery, which, by the way, isn't any type of insult, it's actually an elevation. Holy people, guess what? Their reputation is going to be brought back. They're the top of the pyramid, not earthly, worldly, jungle chimmed, jumping jacking, who knows what. They're the top. And you can get there, but you can only get there with right practice. It's not a social game. So don't even think that. You want to do that, you're not getting in. You're not going to get past go. Because unlike the secularists believe, holy people are smarter than them, not the other way around. What they have is fake smarts, okay? Holy people have real smarts. Where do all these metaphysics come from? Well, the secularist doesn't know. Why do people write books? Why do they have thoughts? What thought came into your head right now? Can they explain that? Neurology, yeah, sure. Where does that labyrinth end? They might know some of the mechanics of it, but where does this type of inspiration come from? Where did it come from? What dimension did it come from? Their idea is flat-footed. Doesn't make any damn sense, except in terms of malignant narcissistic parameters of which most of them are stuck in. The whole universe revolves around them, and of course there could be nothing outside of that. It's a closed system. But if you were to smell that gas, you know what it smells like? I have said it before, yeah, rotten eggs, rotten eggs that are on fire. That's sort of the quality of the content of their limitless gasballism. And people like that exist. They're hermetically sealed. They're psychologically sealed off. So they're high-functioning gasballists. So there's nothing holy about that, is there? But some of them think they are. Oh yeah, they think about it. They can think up anything and be delusional about it if they're not working on that defilement, which is one of the 3 chief defilements identified by Buddhists, but they're so delusional that they think they've seen through everything. So they can't possibly be delusional if they're gods on earth, which is about the level their egotism is on, the godlike egotism. But it's not so godlike, is it? It's more the tyrannical variety. And the deeds they commit, yeah, lots of them can and are classified as crimes. But they don't see it that way. Breaking the rules is what gods do, right? Or do gods rationalize bad behavior? Is that what they do too? Well, these non-gods do that. That is that delusional, but why should we entertain them if we don't have to, if they are identifiable and it is possible to avoid them and exclude them from any type of cooperative enterprise that doesn't need those people, would do much better without people like that, attitudes like that, conceits like that. They would do much better without that. Maybe they can change. Maybe they can apply spiritual hygiene, mental hygiene, and practice. Maybe they can. Maybe they can. Of course they can, but will they do it? It's not our problem. It's their problem, isn't it? But as far as accepting their specialness, hell no. Nothing special about it. Now, me with Chanel number 9, right? Compared to burning rotten eggs, I think I'll stick where I'm at. But of course, it's not about me and I, right? That would be egotistical. That's just a funny metaphor. It's a funny comparison. But it's sort of not so funny if you're stuck in a gas ball with rotten, burning egg smells instead of the other thing. How about no thing? Just that fresh breeze coming in off the ocean. So get prepared, get prepared. We're heading into tumultuous times. We're coming into a time of instability, a time of we thought this would work, but it didn't. For example, gasoline might not be as available for a certain period of time. Also, food deliveries and trucks and everything associated with that. You used to go here and do your shopping there. Well, now you're going to have to take care of all that yourself and not be walking out, traveling, and meeting and greeting because there's a security issue that isn't being addressed, hasn't been addressed. The opposite has happened. It's gotten worse. So wherever there's a lot of people around, that's probably not the place you want to be around. And so you're going to have to start making decisions to simplify your life, given what we're heading into, which one could compare to a storm or an earthquake or both. Because there's no way to reset this thing the way that one would like. And it's not your fault. This was foisted upon us all. Wouldn't it be wonderful not to have a rash that you need to cure? But that's just not the way it works. We've got a rash, a bad one. And it's not being addressed. So everyone needs to start considering things for themselves. And guess what, people? If you make the wrong decisions and you think, well, this person was cool because they were put together in a classroom with me, which wasn't random, and they have all these bad ideas, and I'm going to bring them in, and they're going to be part of something that they're going to end up torpedoing. Those are life and death mistakes, miscalculations, misjudgments, and you might be might be underestimating how terrible those types of decisions can be. So, and if you need an example, yeah, traitors of countries, they betray the country. They let foreign mercenary elements come in and just do whatever the heck they want. So the smaller scale of that is individual people who are contaminated, don't have the right morals, or just pretending to be on your side. Oh, your issue is really pressing? I want to get in front of that and appear to be the popular person that is in front of that, and then they betray that. They're just positioning for social points. They don't follow through. They're captured. And believe you me, some of these people, look, it's not just these traders taking money and pushing the ideology. If they're captured, their handlers have something on them. And so they coerce them to do what they say. So I don't want to say this, AstroTurf. It would undermine my position. Well, guess what? I'm telling you, you have to do it. Otherwise, they're going to publish some who knows what about you. And then guess what? Where you are. You're not only a nothing, but you're exposed as the POS that you actually are. And so that's how they get them to say things. These celebrities that come out and say these things, that's sort of it. So they tell them, yeah, get in front of the popular group, even though you don't want to. Be the Tory in this game. I don't want to do it. Yeah, well, you're going to do it or else, and that's why they're there. They're very motivated, very busy, but their behavior is incongruent. It's flimsy. So develop your sense of smell. There was another funny report that 6 advisors to Sunak, the unelected Toryist, the worst Toryist ever in the UK's history, they switched to the Labour Party because they're due to win the next election by a landslide, because the sabotage that was done to the Tory party, that ride's now over, and so they already know which way the wind is blowing and they're positioning themselves. Now see, normally that information would not be covered by their infomercialist because they just report the barest of facts, but that information is really key, isn't it? Those 6 people, 6 advisors of the worst party in the history of the entire country since prehistoric times. They consider themselves politically savvy people with important connections that they need to provide influence for. And they do know the political system well enough to do that. But how much do you know about the political mechanism? So maybe you're not as expert as them, but then what is the team behind them that's so expert to know all these things? Strange, isn't it? Strange times, strange people. Strange fabrications, strange identities, strange proclivities, strange position taking for virtue signaling points. So this is the game we're in, and I hate it as much as anyone else, but why should we not expect the worst people in the world with the most resources not to attempt things like this and have stooges attempt it? Why should we have that assumption? We should. So this is the state of the decrepitude of our current political systems and the bugs bouncing around those parts. So keep your eyes open, head on a swivel, and I hate to say it, but people that have been to universities should be less credible to you than the ones that haven't. And that's just the nature of the beast at this time. It's horrifying, it's ugly, it's bent, but that's what it was meant to be. It's what the enemies of democracy, civil society, innovation, goodness, that's what they decided on. That's what they implemented. That's the game that they're playing. Whether you want it to be true or not, that's what's in play. So wake up, people. This is your wake-up call. Ding, 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 ding. This is it. So you don't react, you don't take appropriate action, then it's on you. You don't clear out all those axe grinding ideologies and other weird takes on history and memory wars and all that. That's on you. You are not going to heaven that way. You're not. Even if you think you are. You need to review your subconscious processors because there's something screwy with you. And you're not alone. But guess what? You're not going to a good place that way. And why would a merciful God want that for you? Well, he wouldn't, but that's what's going to happen if you don't take appropriate initiative, appropriate action, and stick to it day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute. Here's something I noticed that these leftist sociopaths are big into is anchoring you with over-sexualized terms because there's a psychological basis for that. Like sexuality is on a subconscious level. That's why when you see a picture, it can affect you even if you don't want it to, which is why monks and holy people, they avert their eyes because they don't want to interact. They don't want those subconscious processes, which are essentially animalistic and inbuilt to human beings. They don't want them being activated. Certainly not inappropriately or randomly. But again, getting back to these leftist sociopaths, they know that, and so they spice that into their deranged and boring comedy routines, as well as psychological presentations. I recently saw someone that I otherwise respect that's coming is a secular psychologist use that in their sexual marketplace diatribe that he used. He repeated a inappropriately sexualized term of description in order to anchor it into his pitch, into his infomercialism. And then, of course, he's anchoring it to his own presentation, so he knows the effect this is going to have on his audience, which is, to put it mildly, a low blow. But if people are 100 and below on the IQ level, maybe he's making his address to agitated women, then maybe that will affect his groupies in that way that he wants to manipulate them with. So this is the problem with damn secularists and worldly people. And but here's the thing: what's good practice? Good words, good thoughts, good deeds. So that's essentially using bad words. So if somebody does that, demote them. It's a cheap trick. It's a dirty trick. It's a stupid trick. So demote them. So say, well, I thought this person was credible because they're hit and miss, but this little gimmick puts them on the disreputable list. So no donations, no tips, no subscription, just sort of random, okay, here they are, maybe look at them from the standpoint of a cynic because they're employing cynical methods on people that they probably perceive to be inferior to them, that they want to manipulate or use as supply or something else. So that's just something to note. These capitalists. This is just another gimmick. Always keep your eye out for the new gimmicks, the new crap they come up with, because they have a diversity of crappy little over-sexualized boxes, like the whole trans thing is one of those. Feminism has a component of that as well. What else? Oh yeah, the whole LGBT astroturf movement is all revolving around sexuality. So essentially that's politicized ideological sociopathy in action. So people doing that, the little puppets up there and doing the routine, going through the routine, demote them. Essentially, at some point in the future, when that is officially declared a cultural war crime, they'll be getting charged if they do that. But what they won't be getting charged with is being truly funny or being truly edgy or truly insightful. They won't be getting any charge for that. Just the stuff that is verifiably corny on a psychosociological, ideological level. So keep your peepers peeled out there, people, and start demoting these fools that really think they've rediscovered the wheel. Some egghead wrote in and more or less took offense at me saying that America was started on a agrarian, or was mostly agrarian, which is what was part of what defined the national character at the time. But he said we've since moved on. We have all of these revolutionary technological niche products and things like that. And we have industry, like real industry. And I absolutely get that. It's just we're not organizing it socially enough. There's too much pressure on people. There's not enough redundancy. There's not enough care given to how things are done in the workplace that are satisfactory from a human standpoint. And why is that? Because all these companies are under all this pressure too, to performance pressure, because they're all under the gun, because our financial system's screwy. We got a bunch of people, the in-betweeners, and national debt out the wazoo and whatnot. We don't have enough national income being invested strategically under conditions under which these industries can flourish. And the agrarian side, I think, look, I'm not into the efficiency argument. I understand some of it, some products we could go full efficiency if it was necessary. Like if for some reason soybeans become strategically important, not just for us, but our friends and allies across the world for some strange reason, then okay, let's burn rubber on that and not look to the things I'm talking about, which is more people involved in agriculture and able to conduct it without this horrendous profit model that we call capitalism. People with look, those days are over. These dumbass libertarians that were just stupid shills that were funded by capitalists, those days are damn over. It should be a hybrid model. There should be a lot more strategic investment that is made on a national level, and it needs oversight and not with cronies, the crony culture that we have now. That's why nobody would believe in it. That was the whole argument of the free marketers, which also doesn't really exist, by the way. That's a trope. But the free market, yeah, right, whatever. Sure. It doesn't deliver. It doesn't deliver enough. What it does deliver is a bunch of oligarchs and monopolists that expect everyone else that they impoverish to gravitate towards them because they're the only thing working in town, because they got the funny money clown town connections. Yeah, no, that's not how it's done. That's why people are not happy with the way such the things are done. They're under too much pressure. It's not, again, it goes down to architecture. We need settlements. We need a full concept of production, settlements, and also cottage industries. You could diversify it a little bit, right? That's usually what towns and cities were. They had that diversification of industry within them with certain key focuses. I don't see anything wrong with that, but it needs to be planned from a higher level with more, let's say, less transport costs. There you go. Based on the designs that we have, more social cohesion, less transport costs, and a more holistic concept of life, which includes, for example, if there's a little settlement where people can walk to things, it's all within walking distance, that they also have something like victory gardens that they're attending to so that they keep their relationship with nature. Maybe they could have modules for livestock or something like that. Just it's for the human being as a non-insect-like creature. And of course under favorable conditions, like low to no rent, depending on where they work. Or let's just say low rent, like it's low. Why? Because we don't have a property market. That we get rid of that phony industry. I know a lot of people won't want to hear that, but we're not going to put the emphasis on the little boxes people get stuck on. Because if you really are for people being able to make life decisions for themselves, then guess what? They can try out an industry. They can work in it. Because there's a 3x redundancy, they can be in or out. But they have the freedom to do that. They're not locked in necessarily. It's not critical if they stay or if they go. But if they leave, then there's two people and there's a position open for a third one. And why does that work? Well, because it's also probably subsidized to a certain degree. Because we don't need crazy people. Crazy people aren't efficient. Crazy people aren't better than non-crazy people. And I get the other things, right? In cottage industries, I get all these modern things. I think that's great. I have nothing against that. I support it all. Unless there's some type of problem that would require some type of regulation. But if not, I'm all for letting people experiment with things. And as long as it doesn't become a problem, fine. And if it does become a problem, then it should be put up to debate with a bunch of people that don't have access to grind or personality disorders. And then if there's a general consensus of real experts, not the ones that claim to be experts for whatever weird reasons, it's put up to a vote, then it's possible that you'll get better decisions made consistently over time if you trust the good-naturedness of people and that the process hasn't in some way been subverted towards a special interest. So, no, I'm not for back to the pastism, but I am for better ways of living and shifting the emphasis on people and not necessarily only on the economy or the profit model or numbers. People need to be healthier, happier, less stressed, friendlier, and have more riches in real terms, such as have more time to decide whether they want to devote more to this industry or that, or have a couple of different other things going on all at the same time. Why? Because they can. And why can they? Because they've been empowered to do that by a system that's not predating upon them. Which isn't necessary, by the way. You don't need to squeeze the orange down to the rind on everything. This is, again, this efficiency mindset, the greed mindset, that it has immense negative consequences that, of course, some type of taskmaster, some type of slave driver, some type of plantationist, classist, weirdo, they don't take that into consideration. That's trifling. The lords of old, that's the way they think, these little better than nows. Conceited, narcissistic better than nows that want to sadistically manage essentially livestock as far as they're concerned. Yeah, no, that's the definition of bad management. The last 30 years, so going back 70 years, going back 110 years of more or less mismanagement, despite all the innovation. I look at the craziness index that the economists aren't looking at. It's just gone like straight up, higher up than their numbers. Also, super duper wealthy, I don't think they should really exist. I think they need to understand that they have a national civic responsibility, and if they did become heroes of industry and are wealthy, that's good enough. And it's a question, what's wealthy? I do believe they should feel themselves to be wealthy, but not beyond what is normal. Because then, like I said, was just normal people who start off normal get crazier than you can imagine if they get way too much money. And that is dangerous, not just for the nation, but for the entire world when they start causing wars and funding terrorist groups, as they have done in very recent history. But for stooges that aren't paying attention and are sniffing their own cracks, I understand that they don't understand that, but I'm not addressing them as my audience, nor should anyone give a damn what they think. it's a holistic kind of thing, and it's been totally neglected, and this free market trope BS needs to end. There needs to be more consideration given to holistic system kind of solutions and resettlements. I have to say, resettlements of industry, resettlement of new industries, resettlement of old industries, resettlement of old cities, and reorganizing essentially everything as one goes, as is possible, and without overdoing it. I mean, it has to be doable. There's no point in playing the I'm gonna do everything differently, let's do it all at once type game. That's not wise. That's not what anyone's suggesting either. But people that are conceited and think they're smart, they like to straw man people that have way better ideas than they ever had or will have, and are of way better character and integrity than they will ever be. So watch out for these snide. Again, so it's a form of better than thouism. There's a lot, you have to understand, there's a lot of filthy rich people, and I mean filthy in the old way of thinking about it. It's not funny. They don't want to reconsider how important they are. Like, they don't want to consider themselves to be a part of the pathogenic problem. So they would be against it, and they're stooges too, no matter what you say. And if they have to straw man you, buffoon you, like they run these fake right type of things to make them look stupid on purpose, and film it and then write about it in a snide way, like a theater production, well, that's what they do. I don't do that. I don't see the point in doing that. I don't have to put down people to feel good and legitimate about my position as a lord over people that didn't sign up to be on a damn plantation. So with rich people, I just gotta say, you're either on board or you're off. I would say, look, a government can cut you a check, but if you're gonna play hardball, then that's just the way it's gonna go down. You will go down as a villain. You will be fighting against the wrong thing. So they do say pick your battles wisely. I would say being against real innovation and real leadership, it's about the stupidest damn thing an idiot could do. It was funny. One of these guys said, I know where things are still produced in the United States, and that's just a lie. And you know where they're not made? They're not made in despotic countries. It's like, what are you talking about? It's ridiculous. There is, just look at the statistics. Like the percentage of manufacturing in the United States as the percentage of the economy, it's like falling off a cliff. Like from 1900 to today. Let's do the 110 years of what big fail in a lot of ways. Because it doesn't matter how big your dumb economy is if your social and political and cultural realms get trashed. But then he forgets China. It's like, what? China is a despotic country, dummy. What did you think? You're just reading the Wall Street Journal. You think that's all just normal, that they've been allowed access to Western economies? You think that's okay? What? What type of blind spot is that, brainiac? Yeah, a big one. You could drive a couple nuclear missiles through it, right? That doesn't bother you in the least. And as far as Russia goes, they don't produce anything. Oh, yes, they do. They produce the tanks. They're producing more tanks than Ukraine is at the moment. So how's that supposed to work out? They're going to win because they could produce more. Their economy was stronger. Is that right? These people just don't think things through. That's the problem. Essentially, they're tacticians and schemers, and they lose the strategic situation every damn time. And it's really frustrating because they really think they belong in the discussion, but they're a 110% waste of time on the issues and the points that they are not up on. And it's a shame for their egos, but it's not for the public debate. But again, it's ridiculous to even get into some type of public pissing contest about things that we can't really do unless we start making some fundamental changes. But that's sort of what they're shilling for, is business as usual because everything's working and it's not as dire as people say. This is a great place to live in. It's much better than Timbuktu. Yeah, sure. Well, you know what? It was a better place to live in. But it's not so much now, at least if you're not in some type of hermetically sealed, gated bubble community like a lot of these wig flip lunatics live these days off of who knows what subsidized businesses because they're big friends with lobbyists. Oh, by the way, that one bill with the 4 paragraphs, we can do a 5th one. Lobbying is illegal. And you can get a life sentence for conducting it. We're going to add that one as the 5th paragraph on the 1 page and get that passed. What a glorious day that would be, wouldn't it? But we're getting there one day at a time. We just got to take it slow and get there, because getting there is definitely worth getting there. It's definitely not worth overlooking things. Yeah, guess what? The economy's important, but it's really not the most important thing. Culture and way of life are more important. The economy just is part of that process happening. It's a support. It is not the purpose of life. But see, again, plantationists, they have that blind spot, because what they're doing is they're pitching rubes, they think, in a game they're not playing in. So they're also the ones that'll pitch like increasing the retirement age by 5 years or something like that, and still pretend like they're on the side of innovators and entrepreneurs. So it's like, what? Where's that disconnect coming from? Yeah, look into the person's background. They're probably, some graduate student, some doctorate from some cooked university that is living off a trust fund, talking about everything's great here. We're manufacturing, more than ever, and people want to move here. Even all these undocumented illegal aliens, hybrid invaders that just somehow seem to permeate the borders. But if you go 5 miles per hour over the speeding ticket, you'll get your license pulled. Yeah, so better than Maoists, be advised. They're pretty slick. One of them, like I said, he didn't start talking nonsense until the last 5% of his presentation, where he pretended that despotic countries like China were not outproducing us at this time. And in an industrial capacity basis, which of course is the backbone of their future war machine, which people have estimated will kick off in the next 2 years or so. So if they can just keep us on a race in the bottom, or a race to the bottom and in a status quo, then they will have earned their little tincture, their little tenures that they egotistically hold on to at the opportunity cost of real talent. So if they look funky, guess what? In this day and age, they are funky. Now, someone wrote back and said, what is it with your criticism of Australia? Aren't they doing the right thing by de-escalating? And isn't Japan doing the wrong thing by escalating? And I almost had to stop for a minute and think about that one. And then I thought to myself, well, what can prevent war is called deterrence. If you have a strong deterrence, like it's just the same thing with your house. If you're in a high crime area, which is in many places these days, if you have a super duper security system, they're gonna go someplace else. If you have a dog, like let's say a couple of running German shepherds or something, you got a fence, you got a couple of dudes that look like they know what they're doing. You have different layers of defense. It's not worth it to them. They're looking for the low-hanging fruit. So as far as allies go, if they're not doing what is required to deter, they're actually encouraging our adversaries to make a fatal mistake that could very well end up costing them and others their lives. So what it is a failure of duty. It's a failure of good sense, and it's incitement to someone that wouldn't refrain from it if they could get away with it. And they've been doing quite enough and a lot to think that they can. So I'm not saying they haven't done anything, but they're certainly not doing enough when compared to other allies that don't seem to have the same kinds of problems that they do on a leadership level or on the level of comprehension. So that's the difference. Their influence is encouraging a war that they will lose. Someone wrote in and said, could you say a few more words about political operatives, because it seems to be a subject that most people don't understand. Thank you. And I said, yeah, it is something that is really tricky, and it is hard to understand. Because for the other side to get someone on your side, they have to slow cook them. In many cases, they try to get them young because they consider it a lifelong project. And so they're sweet talking in the beginning. Sweet talking, what was the way I put it? Sweet talking brigands. So they don't represent themselves to be the people they are. So people with a lot of money, right? Nobody knows where it came from. That might have an interesting cover story for themselves, be involved in some interesting things. Might be able to make some criminal things just happen, or good things happen for you just because you're friends with them and you just don't really or weren't expecting there to be some type of geopolitical connection that is diametrically opposed to your country. Something like that, you know? So over time, their favors to you add up under false pretenses. And this could go on for years because it's that slow cooking process. But then they might make some suggestions, like, why don't you go here or do this or do that? And then they might say, well, I don't think I could do that. Well, they'll say, well, I know some people that I think could help you do that and be that. But of course, it goes without saying that there's strings attached in that type of business, aren't there? Quid pro quo type of things. But of course, they don't ever outwardly state their mass murderous intentions, that would be rather unwise, wouldn't it? So, sweet talking smuggies and brigands. And then I guess things go on for a couple of years until they need a dang favor. Everything's going great for them. They built up their whole identity as pillars of the community because they're so dang special. Because they've been selected, because they're likely have a weak spot for egotism, money, ideology, something like that, some combination of that. Egotism, narcissism, malignant narcissism, they like those types of people. In fact, they're people like that. The sweet talking brigands are malignant narcissists, essentially. High in schemerism, psychopathy, and egotism. Right? They themselves think they're above the law and break the rules and do all that type of stuff that people can find in the most in the descriptions of the most despicable people that have ever existed. Something like that. Devilish kinds of personalities. People enamored with devilish talents. People of the devil. People mixed up in the devil's game, shall we say. Poof. And where's Professor Voland? Oh, there you see him. There you don't. Something like that. And then, of course, as time goes on and these people become more and more invested, deeper into the ditch, further down the wrong direction, they're coerced. So then that invisible watch, the C watch, materializes on their right arm. And then they're told what to do, or else. And so then you'll see the so-called pillars of the community doing counterintuitive things like supporting psychosociological terroristic ideas, campaigners, you name it. And that's just how it works. It's not just been one case. There's after the 30 years of bandits where all of these games were considered not to have existed. See, in the Cold War, they took that a little bit more seriously. They knew that they were coming. They knew what they were up against. They didn't know it before the end of World War II. They were still sort of deluded. However, it is interesting to note that the State Department did not recognize Bolshevik revolutionaries as a legitimate government for decades. That's a nice little indicator of the smart people back then who were paying attention. But as the years went on and then other geopolitical developments took place, just like the idiots who came up with the pivot to Asia strategy that was ill-conceived, they had certain type of idiots decide that it was the end of history when 1989 rolled around, which essentially left the entire West open to all the old games, just under the pretense that they were behind us. When in fact they weren't, were they? Nope. There was just a little bit of window dressing that happened and that was it. All the big brain, the rotten eggheads that signed off on that. Boy, I'm sure they got like little stars somehow for doing that, but they're not wearing those around because they're real Americans is what they say they are. It's just their actions aren't really congruent, are they? I mean, would John Wayne have done what they do? I don't think so. But, the power of delusion, the power of major repetitive propagandistic lying and framing does have its mesmeric effects, doesn't it? Where we essentially have just zombified groups of people that are hysterically misguided against their own heroes, their own history, their own country, but think they're really for the right thing, because how could they be wrong? So all those things working together, because it's also combined arms type of theory in a civilian sphere, so it's a little bit more complex. For example, they went in for the businesses. They're big in the economy, like setting up cartels. The Mexican model is a Trotskyist Maoist invention outside the despotic core. So again, 0 Fs given for the people there. Their religion, their traditions, their laws, their customs, whatever it is, it's just a power play and a smoke show, essentially. So some people said that they thought I was a little too harsh about Mexico. I disagree. Now, for Mexicans, that's a whole different category. See, all these despotic countries mistreat their own people. So the Mexicans, I know they're not at fault. I know that there's a lot of good Mexicans out there. I've met them personally. I've been to Mexico. But just like in Russia or Eastern European countries or East Germany or anywhere else, you still can't mentally levitate off the ground and just forget that these complete villains and criminals don't exist or aren't still in the game, because they absolutely are. But again, naive, well-meaning people that like straightforward things and don't think they're being lied to, because they're quick enough that they could catch deceptions that are as complex as they are when done by postdoctorate villains and departments of brain scramblers. They often do overestimate their abilities, don't they? Just look at the polished stooges in the academy at this time. I hope they're all digitally saved. Even if there is a nuclear war, I hope we don't lose that data. Because within 20 years, they're going to be looked at as essentially people that escaped an insane asylum and took acting classes, because that's essentially what they are. But in this time, no. They're the arbiters of good sense, morality, policy, you name it. 2024, worst year in Western history. That was another thing. Some people disputed that. Like, well, we have comfort, right? We have microwaves. We have the TV dinners have improved. You know, they take these little sort of trivial things and want to gloss over the inversion of moral principles. It's not the same thing there. Goofballs. It's not really in the same category, is it? And I also have to say that all the innovations we've made, all the advances, all that will go away if current trends continue. There's really no cultural underpinnings for that anymore, from the standpoint of the current leadership structures and processes for vetting leadership or disposing of blobs that hasn't happened. So, yeah, there's no reason in the world why first world countries can't become fourth world countries, because that's exactly what happened to Russia in 1917. Essentially, the richest country in the world became a complete madhouse for, what do we talk about now? 100 years? Over, let's say 110 years, yeah. Looking to continue now for the next 100 years if things aren't going to change there. So the good expectations of good people often don't come true if they are deluded, and if they don't take right action. And that's just the way it is. If there's a mutiny on a great ship, that ship is not destined for good things anymore unless there's some type of countervailing force that reestablishes good working order on that ship. It's that neutral, it's that simple. And take any old ship. I like looking at the histories of old ships, like the HMS Bounty. I think that's a very instructive tale. But there were so many different tales like that, right? How many ships have had mutinies on them that we know of and we know the details of? That's a fascinating question. That's something. Has there been any books on that? You can write me in the comments. Send me some of the books where we could go through the mutinies on ships. Now, that's not to say that all mutinies were bad. Many times it was the fault of the leadership of those ships. You had a bunch of smuggies and better than nows in the then class system, which was as defunct then as it is today. And they did stupid things like unnecessarily beat the underpaid, underfed sailors on their ships, and that led to a revolt. But in other cases, someone was trying to instill good working order, and the crew was the problem. And that was just the misfortune of that ship and that captain and his crew. And these things we can chalk up to randomness and change, right? C plus R. Let's put that in a mathematical formula for life, right? Those are the two variables that are always there. It was just bad luck that that bad dude showed up on that day in that place and got signed up to the roll call. And that was the determinant factor in everybody dying. See? Who knew? Did you know? I'll tell you who knew. The devil knew. But you didn't. See? That's how it works. That's how deception works, right? That's how self-deception works. And the results are not good, are they? Would you say that's a good thing or bad thing? Or is it just a neutral thing? See, that's when we come back to these variables. Good and bad are only in relation to a self. But if you have no self, it's sort of neutral, isn't it? We just have change and randomness. See, this is the ultimate neutrality that the Buddha knew. But see, just knowing these things, just looking at a mathematical equation that is somewhat counterintuitive from a self-centered standpoint, it takes you a long time to figure that out, for that to permeate into your being, that ultimate truth. Takes a long time. You can I stare at mathematical equations all the time for hours and days and months and years on end. And I know it's true. I think I've got it, but I really don't. It just sort of is beyond human understanding in many cases. But we want it. We want the understanding. We want to just keep remembering the truth, but we forget. And that's why practice is returning again and again and again and again and again and again and again to these truths. Because they're true. It is true. It was true 2,500 years ago. It was true before that. And it's true today. Those variables are there. And those misperceptions are there. And our lives, again, we're overly focused on just one life. That is the ignorance and conceit of post-modernity. And we can already see the narcissistic misperception of that, which, again, we have to think historically that really stupid, subnormal, power-hungry people went into psychology to gain some worldly benefit from that, as malignant narcissists are apt to do. And so that's how it was turned into this self-centered, self-focused, methane blimp-like black arts and science that is still very present in this day. It's just, again, been repackaged because they're trying to gain some advantage, right? According to this paradigm, knowledge is power, right? Knowledge is power. Knowledge has to have power for it to justify itself, they think, because it's a self-centered exercise. They're not going to pay for a degree in psychology and work in psychology to not have some type of gain thereby, not just in monetary terms, but in manipulative, coercive terms. So instead of helping people, they're creating these cul-de-sacs of insanity that mess people up, whereby they stay in some position of authority because that's how they see their advantage. So unfortunately, psychology is shot through with personality types like this that have done immense harm to the entire globe, entire cultures, entire countries, everything. And the revolution of 1917 put a lot of them to work in the worst kinds of ways, and the results have been just mind-bogglingly bad. But narcissistic personality types, they don't admit that they did anything wrong. They can't do that. They won't do that. How could they be wrong? How could they, so powerful, they be wrong? That's what weak people would say, or mean people, or hateful people. That's what they say. We're not going to listen to what they say. It's about us finally getting access to this knowledge that we're going to use to increase our power, our power, as powerful people. And so you can also see that exploitiveness in the original psychotherapeutic practice, where there's a codependency essentially established between someone who is suffering and the healer that constantly needs to heal problems that aren't being solved because they're not being put in terms that would heal the patient, because then that would be the end of the relationship, wouldn't it? Again, and it's not just a financial relationship, it's a manipulative power relationship, because where's the supply coming from? Well, the doctor's supply is coming from the patient that needs all that help all the time. So a lot of these dung beetles, when they picked up that racket, they thought that they had won the lottery of life. That they could come from the gutter and the fecal, the fecal pools, and flip the script on good society. They thought that that was just amazing. That was like, wow, lead into gold. That was their magic ticket. And so it created this type of sensationalism around it at the beginning of the 20th century. Which, oddly enough, is Nietzsche's time. So that gives you the context. In which that happened. And yeah, we still are living with the residuals of that in the form of a class of totally and utterly misguided academicians, stooges, sadistic inverters, and everything else down the line. Where the wealthy might be able to afford to cure themselves, but the underclass of 95% of people beneath the 5% malignant narcissist class, they don't deserve any good things that, like, for example, being free of mental illness. Just like the shopkeepers aren't free of the protection rackets where mafia-like structures are active. But before those mafia structures were there, the proprietors didn't need no damn protection money, because there weren't people going around smashing windows. But if you create a sadistic culture, then you're going to have a lot more people that are messed up, and therefore you're going to need a lot more people to try to heal them. And look at that, there's the money angle again. Oh my goodness, look at the right arm. What time do we have on the right arm? The M? The M is on 10. The I is on 10, right? And the E is on 10. And if they can put the C on the left hand and use it against people that they predate on, whoa, that's just an added bonus, isn't it? Because they certainly did that. You don't think they didn't? Here's my couch. Please lie down. Tell me about your repressed sexual fantasies. We have an hour. All right, ready, set, go. But yeah, really respectable people in public, just not so much in reality. And now they've moved on to kids. So, because I guess they're easier in some way. So yeah, these are just, what can you call them? So I'm getting far afield. But yeah, not so good for the community over time, really. All these pretenses of being healers, when in fact that's just one part of the equation. Just like them saying they're doing something good for, what do you call them? Homophilic segments of society that want to get into legally binding relationships, which statistics prove is financially disastrous for them, but not for the legal caste of predators that occupy courts in the West at this time. where if you were to quantify the negative economic impact of those legalistic machinations, are almost unquantifiable in their negativity, but certainly not for brigands that profit by that. They, instead of just having 2 cases a week, they've got 12 cases. 12 different things that they can chop up and divide and get their noses and little greedy fingers into, and play morality plays in courtrooms where people are crying, kids are crying, experts, fake experts are brought in, people are driving hundreds of miles here and there. So self-importance is something they also like to have while pulling off things like that, pulling off capers like that. So now let's imagine Curly. Certainly, right? So yeah, look on the left hand again, 0 Fs, that's what they're wearing. But people that do care about laws, like, kings of old, they probably wouldn't see it the same way that these dogs do. I wouldn't even call them dogs. What do you call them? Monsters? Yeah, monsters. Monstrous culture, monstrous implementers of monstrous policies with monstrous results. But they look at their watch, 0 Fs, there you go. And they look on the watch on the right hand, a lot of numbers on that E-watch, the ego. Those little hands are stuck on 12. Oh, and the money part, just look at the cars they're driving around in. Little houses that they have. Suits and ties and silks and rings and little ornaments and nice vacations and nice neighborhoods and things like that. Versus the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of families that they've destroyed, millions of lives. But look at the left hand, 0 Fs, there you go. That's how they think. That's how they're going through life. That's how they are always on time to their appointments. Because they're always in the middle of that circle of 0. Encapsulated in their own egotism that does not see anything wrong with doing that type of harm. Because if they did, they wouldn't do it, would they? They don't see that. They see me as a huckster like them, trying to talk them out of something that they know is profitable. So obviously I am the idiot from their perspective, but what would that make them if they're wrong and I'm right? What would that make them? Would that be a highly delusional, dangerous person? Someone who is doing immense harm and doesn't admit it to themselves? Is that the type of person we're oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All their clothes have vanished, and look at these hideous monsters that we're dealing with here. Somebody should hold up a mirror. Let them know. But see, they will break that mirror. They don't want to see themselves that way. They want an airbrushed portrait created to their delusional likings and proclivities. That's what they pay for, and they have the money to pay for it, don't they? So self-flattery, yeah, Imagine that. They go from delusion to the levels of self-flattery, impervious to the truth, and they think they're strong that way. What a strength, right? The strength of an odor. There, see, crack that garbage pail that's been sitting in the August sun all day with fish guts in it. Open that pail and smell. Oh. Oh. That's what they are inside. But as long as they keep that all pent up in themselves, they don't smell it. And so, yeah, these types of games, they're pretty diabolical, to put it mildly. So, but yes, although these things are happening in different places, we can at least be happy that they're not happening in all places all the time. I don't want to paint everyone with that brush, but I would just say in this worst year of Western civilization ever, they are predominant in very many places. At least from the standpoint of a personality spectrum, they tend towards what I just described, even though they would vehemently and hysterically deny that. Certainly to themselves, and see, Curly, certainly, and to others. Because if they are as delusional as they are, they can be pretty convincing, can't they? This world is flat. Look, the horizon, you see that? Flat. These books, they're lies. That man who said that, he's a hater, that's right. He hates good things. Oh, oh, is that right? Is that right? Okay. So this debate is ended. Shut this down. We're never having one of these again. Arrest everyone here. Yeah. Okay. Powerful people with powerful ideas. Powerful schemes. Powerful. So I forgot to mention that pail with the fish guts in it, that had some poo in it as well. So that's what gave it its tangy smell on top of the other things inside. So, but on the other hand, we have to realize that some of them, they're so impenetrable because they were born into families that were that way. And in a lot of ways, they had cultures that were reinforced those anti-values in a repetitive, consistent way. And so it's somewhat understandable that they are so conditioned that they can't break free of the worldview that dooms them to the hell realms. Now, I mentioned in a previous lecture, Hellraiser, be advised. See, they wrecked that film too. The real Hellraiser is from the 1980s. As these maddening culture vandalizers are apt to do, they like to, again, stack something crappy on top of the original. Go back to the original. Number 1. Maybe 2 and 3. That was actually 1. I think, see, all films after 1990 have to be reviewed for cultural vandalism. Essentially, that's when American cinema died, with a few exceptions after that, like a handful. Like there might be 100 films from 1990 to 2024. everything else just complete crap, or crap enough that it would have to be edited to get the crap out, or just consigned to some dustbin. Like, this is the crap bin. You can go through it, but it's not something you should randomly click on. And yeah, I understand it's really disappointing, but the people who devise these cultural decomposition programs, that's where they put their money and their little hands and feet and big rotten eggheads. They're tiny dingalingists. Dingaling bing banged one of the best industries the United States ever had. And we'll have again, I hope. Because we're going to focus more on quality, not quantity. And that quality is something that other people will be able to recognize in good faith, and not because some rotten eggheads say it's an important film when it's not. Which is what they do today. And this time, 2024, they still think they can keep doing that. And still consider themselves to be celebrities or what? Famous people? What? Famous for what? So, yeah, management, production, and results. That's sort of what it is. Garbage in, garbage out. That's how it works. It's how it works in the fish guts, the tuna plant. And that's how it works in cinema too. So, yeah, coming back, yeah, we reached a level of system complexity in industrial and post-industrial societies that the leadership was not able to adequately resolve in time. And that's what gave an attack vector to the worst people in the world. And people that think like that, which is essentially a psychological category. It doesn't really have any other parameters than that. It's a spiritual dimension, you see. We could go back and say, well, okay, this is the reason why they thought this way, most likely, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Like, me, personally, like I said, I was thrown down the 1,000 oak stairs and broke every bone in my body on a metaphorical level. But that did not turn me into a deranged demon like it did them. My journey took me to no self. Their journey took them to a self that essentially is devilish in its executions, in its manifestations, in its irritations, in its misguidings and failed conceptionalities. Ultimately, see, just like the sucker that gets sweet talked by the sweet talking brigand, they didn't think it would end up that way. They didn't think they would generate the gases in that garbage pail I just mentioned. They thought it was going to be quite different. And being overly convinced of their own mental faculties and abilities, that was just part of the ruse that led to those outcomes. Now, again, for the spiritual causality of that, this is not the end of the line for them, even though they would like to think that they're going to finish the finish line of life and they're going to sign off with respectability, even though they haven't really led a life worthy of that concept. And so that's where we get back to the more intelligent, superstitious person that if they watched Hellraiser, the original ones, that they might not even get close to where these torpedoes are going, whether they want to or not, whether they think it's real or not. This isn't happening. This isn't real. This can't be happening. Yeah, that's what they say. That's what they say. Someone wrote in and said, yeah, I know you mentioned George Washington and Andrew Jackson. What do you think of DC today? Thank you. And I thought about it. I was like, look, yeah, you're right. Maybe we need to have an architectural commission that looks into historically important buildings. And I would walk into a building that they commissioned to be built, but not any other damn building there. In fact, if it got completely demolished tomorrow, we would probably have better preconditions for doing the right thing in the right way going forward. I think a lot of these dirt bags that are somehow associated with politics, they think that if everything just stays the same, they're going to keep winning. So the idea should be to change everything. In fact, I think DC was a compromise from the beginning, and it wasn't a good one. And so where else in the country would be better? It would be fascinating to know. At that time, it was considered to be a compromise and a better place than Philadelphia, for example. In retrospect, I think that was a mistake because it didn't avert a civil war later anyway, and DC is a damn swamp. It was a swamp then, and it is one today. Although you could say it's a worse type of swamp when there were just mosquitoes there. Where malaria was the only danger, whereas today, what is there? So, yeah, I think historically, we need architecturally savvy people that would put together a list, and maybe it could be rebuilt the way it was during Jefferson's time. Like I would go up to that point, and then afterwards, just get rid of the stuff that is just ugly and stupid. You know, this over influence on Roman architecture is also pretty corny, especially because Rome didn't make it. Okay. So, new architecture is sort of where it's going, but not a complete separation from all history. That doesn't make any sense either, does it? It's pretty stupid in its own way. You can overshoot the goal, you can undershoot, and just accepting things the way they are, that's undershooting by a long shot. Essentially, the types of crimes, the lawfare and the misdirection of finances and culture, I think I would try to walk in one of those buildings and there would be like a force field that would not, my body would just stop. I couldn't enter because of the evilness that has been perpetrated on the American people emanating from that place. So what would be a new place? Come up with some ideas. You can leave it in the comments. Give me your top 5 best locations for the new capital. because the old one, it's done. 2024 killed it. Or let's say 2023. 2024, we still have the possibility of putting in historically important committees, but whether that'll happen or not, it's not looking that way. 2024 is too deep in the hole. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. I see it. I can see it. I'm already there. I'm in. I'm 1,000 years in the future. Okay. So the crap of today doesn't interest me in the least, really. Although I do believe there is a historical responsibility to take historically significant things, handle them or deal with them with the respect, the dignity and civility that they deserve, but not an iota over that, which would go into some type of sentimentality that would then overlook the bad decisions that have been made there consistently over the last 30 years, certainly, which represents a total failure of the experiment, in my opinion, but it's not dead yet, is it? We still have certain things that are certainly worth preserving, which is the spirit of the whole project in the first place, and not the edifices that have failed to represent that. Not just the outside, but certainly the inside, and the critters that scurry around those parts don't see anything wrong with that labyrinth that works for them. So yeah, write in the comments top 5 locations, because maybe we should also have 5 locations, something like that, where people can essentially be in the capital all at the same time. Is that possible? A little bit more dispersed, maybe built with also more modern concerns. Different things like that. Someone wrote in and said, can you say something about small business or some type of economic policies? Thank you. So first off, there needs to be a commission set up for small business. And there also needs to be a commission set up to identify businesses that are considered valuable from a national standpoint. And those businesses that can qualify for that, they will be exempt from taxes. So they will get a special certificate from the President of the United States and his Commission for Small Business, and they will put that on the wall. And they will never pay a penny of tax for as long as the business is conducted according to its mandate that is determined at the time that the certificate is issued. How about that? So, and as far as taxes go, there will be, again, sort of a special tax once you make, let's say, over 5 million. That everything above that sort of goes into the general fund. And if anybody tries to skirt that, they will be arrested. So if some of these rich pricks go to the greed side, they're going to be treated like the common criminal and not some rich malignant narcissist that has a special narrative for themselves and their rule breaking. 5 million is a damn enough. You can't be happy with that, you're not going to be happy, period. And whatever you think you're going to do that's good for this world, you're not. You're deluded. You can't be happy with 5 million, what's wrong with you? Now, people will point to property prices and whatnot. Well, that's another thing that's going to be taken care of once the banking system is taken care of. As Andrew Jackson saw fit, he was dead on the money. There will be a lot more money in a lot better places, believe you me, after those reforms go into effect. And I'm not about pitter-pattering with people that don't want it to happen. It's going to go to the Congress and it will be approved and it will be put into effect. And there's going to be no damn funny business about that. So for the greedy, imbecilic class, cash out now. Because you're going to be lucky to get a check cashed to you if you don't. Because whatever fables you have in your mind that you're some type of economic powerhouse, you're not. You're a blight on the economy, you're a blight on the culture, and you're part of the problem. So be part of the solution. You can change your mind. Just like the turncoats that were snookered by sweet-talking brigands, you can wake up and change your ways. You can drop it. But if you don't, do realize there will be a cat and mouse game that you most likely will lose. And it's a good thing that you do. Just like it's a good day when bad people are stopped. So whatever values you thought were American, greed is no longer and never was a part of it. That is a damn lie. That, oddly enough, the interested parties propagated using their capitalistic advantages that disadvantaged everyone else, including their own understanding of what it is to be Americans. Americans never were and never will be greedy. See, a lot of that was just projection from the other side that had a vested interest in portraying us that way. If you look at their propaganda to the global south, right, that's how they present it. We're the imperialists, not them. But they're the ones that funded the Green Men that caused all these coups d'etats where they have the mining rights. But it was American imperialism that everybody had to watch out for because Americans are greedy. The Americans that policed the world's oceans between 1945 up until now and didn't act like pirates. They essentially set up a free system that our mortal enemies ended up profiting more by, with a compromised WTO and other idiotic, ramrodded, nut job kinds of institutions that have utterly betrayed and failed their original purpose. But we know why that happened, don't we? Once we understand who we're actually dealing with and how they operate and the net effects of that. So if you're naive to think enough that, oh yeah, sure, when they take over the oceans, everything's going to work just like they did before, like when the generous, fair, and honorable Americans were managing things, you're dead wrong. You're one of the dumbest stooges that could possibly be here in this time of total stupidity. So give yourself a clap. You fell for it, just like a lot of other suckers do and did. So So Americans are good to a fault, and that's the problem. See, once you reach that tipping point of goodness, it does become bad. Can't be generous with everyone. You should generously direct funds to the good parts of the economy and the people and the world, and not be generous to the bad parts. For example, small businesses, how about this, culturally important enterprises? Any type of organization that is now being taxed, that feels that it has a claim, that can be extended to them as well. On the other hand, places that are just pretending to be that but don't deliver, those places will be shut down, and the people will be charged with fraud that should get a minimum of 5 to 10 years in prison. So if you aren't legitimate, I would not advise making that attempt, because the attempt itself could be considered to be an affront to the intelligence and the goodwill of the American people and their administration. So again, this whole culture of tomfoolery and crime and rule breaking and having ridiculous sadistic rules, and then the rule breaking associated with that, that's coming to an end. That all of that's stopping. It's all of that is going to be demolished. That is not our culture. That wasn't our culture, and so help us God, that will not be our culture going forward. It's going to be a straight shooting administration. It's not going to be filled with favoritism. It's going to have a clear mandate, and it's going to have a tremendously positive impact on the economy, the world, the culture, all at the same time.